Hey everyone. This is Six Path Weeb. Today's topic dives into a fascinating alternate timeline. What if Anko chose Naruko over Orochimaru? A single decision, a different loyalty, how much could that really change the world we know? More than you might think. From shifting power dynamics to emotional bonds and hidden potential, we're exploring a version of the story where choices redefine destiny. Before we begin, a quick note. This content is created purely for entertainment and discussion. I do not own any anime footage used, full credit goes to the original creators and copyright holders. Now, let's get into it. At 16, Mitarashi Anko often felt like she stood on the edge of her village rather than inside it. The village hidden in the leaves was bright and busy, full of laughter and bustling streets, but for Anko, it sometimes felt quiet and distant, as if she were watching it from far away. People didn't always understand her. Because of her past and the choices of her former teacher, some villagers whispered when she walked by. Their words were not kind, and though Anko tried to hide it behind a playful grin and a carefree attitude, those whispers could still sting. So she carried herself boldly, head held high, refusing to let their opinions decide who she was. Most days, she wandered the streets with a confident stride, her coat swaying behind her like a banner. She liked to pretend their words didn't matter at all. Sometimes she even teased them back with a mischievous smile, as if to say, "You don't know me at all." But deep inside, Anko longed for something simple, someone to see her not as a story or a rumor, but just as herself. One afternoon, as she walked along a quieter path near the center of the village, she noticed something unusual. A small, worn teddy bear lay on the ground, its fabric faded and its stitching loose, as if it had been loved very, very much. Anko paused. She gently picked it up, brushing a bit of dust from its head. "Well," she murmured softly, "you look important to someone." Just then, she heard the sound of hurried footsteps and soft, shaky breathing. From around the corner came a small girl, Naruko Uzumaki. She couldn't have been more than 4 years old. Her golden hair was messy, her cheeks smudged with dirt, and her bright blue eyes shimmered with tears. She stopped when she saw Anko, her gaze immediately falling on the teddy bear. My bear," Naruko said quietly, her voice trembling like a tiny leaf in the wind. Anko blinked, surprised by how tightly the little girl held onto those words. "This yours?" Anko asked, crouching down to Naruko's level. Naruko nodded quickly. "She's my friend," she said, hugging herself as if she could already feel the comfort of the toy again. "She listens to me. Even when no one else does." Something in those words made Anko's playful smile soften into something more genuine. She held the teddy bear out. Naruko rushed forward and carefully took it, holding it close like it was the most precious thing in the world. Almost instantly, her small shoulders relaxed. "Thank you," she whispered. Anko studied her for a moment. The little girl looked lonely, but not broken. There was still a quiet strength in her eyes, like a tiny spark waiting to grow. "Well," Anko said, standing up and placing her hands on her hips, "you shouldn't be running around alone like that. The village is big, you know." Naruko looked up at her. "I'm used to it," she said softly, though her voice carried a hint of bravery. Anko tilted her head. "Maybe," she replied, "but even the bravest people deserve someone watching out for them." Naruko blinked at that, as if the idea was new to her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the soft scent of leaves and sunlight. Then Anko grinned, a real one this time. "Hey," she said, "how about I walk with you for a bit? Just until you get where you're going." Naruko hesitated, then gave a small nod. Side by side, the unlikely pair began walking down the path. For Anko, it was just a simple gesture. For Naruko, it felt like the beginning of something warm and new. And for the first time in a long while, neither of them felt quite so alone. A harsh voice cut through the quiet street, but before the words could take root, a firm presence stepped forward. Anko Mitarashi tilted her head and gave a mischievous smile, not frightening, but sharp enough to make troublemakers think twice. "That's enough," she said, her tone calm but unyielding. The small crowd shifted uneasily. There was something in her gaze, not anger, but certainty, that made them lose their nerve. One by one, they muttered to themselves and hurried away, their bravado fading as quickly as it had appeared. When the street finally grew quiet, Anko let out a soft breath and looked down. Clinging tightly to her leg was a small child, Naruko Uzumaki, trembling like a leaf in the wind. Despite everything, Naruko held onto a worn teddy bear, gripping it as if it were the most precious treasure in the world. Anko's expression softened instantly. She crouched down and gently lifted Naruko into her lap, careful and slow so she wouldn't startle her. "Hey now," she murmured in a voice so warm it barely sounded like the same person. "You're safe. I won't hurt you." Naruko hesitated, her small hands tightening around her bear. "You promise?" she whispered. "I promise," Anko said, brushing a few strands of messy golden hair away from Naruko's face. "Look, I even saved your bear." Naruko's blue eyes widened as she saw it. "Kuma-chan," she cried softly, hugging it close with relief. Anko chuckled gently. "You named your bear? That's adorable." Naruko gave a tiny nod, still sniffling but already calming down. For a moment, Anko simply sat there, rocking her slightly. She noticed how quickly the child's small scrapes seemed to fade, how resilient she was despite everything she had endured. It made Anko's heart ache. Naruko had done nothing wrong. She was just a child, kind, curious, and far too brave for her own good. "Who are you?" Naruko asked after a while, peeking up. "My name is Anko," she replied with a gentle smile. "And you are Naruko Uzumaki." Naruko blinked. Why are you being nice to me?" "Because you deserve kindness," Anko said simply. "And because I know what it feels like to be misunderstood." Naruko tilted her head. "You do?" Anko nodded. "Sometimes people decide things about you without really knowing you. But that doesn't make them right." Naruko thought about that, then said softly, "I think you're really nice. And really pretty." Anko blinked in surprise before laughing lightly. "Well, thank you, Naruko." There was a pause, and then Naruko asked, "Anko-ne-chan. Will you leave me?" Anko's expression softened even more. She gently adjusted Naruko in her arms so she felt secure and warm. "I'm right here," she said. "And I'm not going anywhere just yet." Naruko slowly relaxed, resting her head against Anko's shoulder, still hugging Kuma-chan. The street, once tense and unkind, now felt quiet and safe. And for the first time in a long while, Naruko felt something new, something gentle and bright. She felt like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't alone anymore. Anko had to strain her ears to hear the tiny voice, but she caught it all the same. "No, Naru-chan, I'm not going to leave you. Why don't you come back to my place with me?" she offered gently. The little girl's face lit up at once. Naruko's bright eyes sparkled like sunshine on water, and she nodded eagerly, hugging her small teddy bear close. Anko smiled, lifting her up before setting her down and taking her hand. Together, they began walking away from the village. After a while, Naruko slowed down. In front of them stood a tall fence surrounding a vast forest. A large sign hung on the gate, painted with a bold warning symbol. "I don't think we're supposed to go in there," she whispered, her small fingers clutching Anko's coat as she peeked out nervously. Anko crouched beside her with a reassuring smile. "But I live there. It's called the Forest of Death. Don't let the name scare you," she said softly. "I'm right here, and I won't let anything trouble you, my little Naru-chan. We'll be home before you can say ramen." Naruko blinked. "What's ra?" Before she could finish, there was a soft puff, and in the blink of an eye, they were no longer at the gate. Instead, they stood deep inside the forest, right in front of a tall tower. "Wow," Naruko exclaimed, her earlier worries forgotten. She spun around, her golden hair swaying as she looked at the towering trees and the sky peeking through their leaves. "How did you do that?" "That was a special ninja technique," Anko explained with a playful grin. "If you train hard, I can teach you one day." Naruko's face glowed with excitement as she hugged Kuma-chan tightly. "Really? I want to learn everything." Anko chuckled and led her inside the tower. Up they went, climbing stair after stair. Naruko looked around curiously, her small footsteps echoing. "Does anyone else live here?" she asked. "Nope," Anko replied cheerfully. "Most people think it's a strange place to live. But I like it. It's quiet, and I can be myself here." Naruko giggled. "I like it too. It feels like an adventure." "That's exactly what it is," Anko said. They climbed a little higher until Naruko's steps slowed, her energy fading. Anko noticed and gently lifted her onto her shoulders. "Better?" she asked. "Much better," Naruko replied happily, resting her head on top of Anko's. After a moment of quiet, Naruko spoke again. "Anko-ne-chan. Can I be a shinobi?" Anko's expression softened. "Of course you can. I'll train you myself." Naruko gasped. "Really? Really? And one day, You could even become Hokage. Naruko tilted her head. What's a Hokage? The Hokage is the strongest shinobi in the village, Anko explained. They protect everyone and help guide the village. Naruko's eyes grew wide with determination. She raised her tiny fist, Kuma-chan tucked under her arm. Then I'm going to be the greatest Hokage ever. And Kuma-chan will help me. She'll be my most trusted advisor. Anko laughed warmly, the sound echoing down the hallway. It had been a long time since she had laughed like that. At last, they reached her floor. Anko opened the door, and Naruko's eyes widened in wonder. The room was warm and welcoming, with soft chairs, a cozy couch, and shelves filled with books and scrolls. Sunlight filtered through the windows, making everything glow. When Naruko stepped inside, her bare feet sank gently into the soft carpet. She paused, wiggling her toes and smiling in amazement. It's so soft, she whispered. Anko watched her quietly, a gentle smile on her face. Naruko looked around the room, hugging Kuma-chan close. For the first time in a long while, she felt something new and wonderful. She felt at home. Anko noticed the dreamy smile on Naruko's face as she wiggled her toes in the soft carpet. The little girl seemed completely enchanted, as if she had discovered something magical for the very first time. Anko let out a quiet chuckle, though this time it was gentle and warm. Looks like you've made a new friend, Naru-chan, she said kindly. Naruko looked up, her bright eyes shining. It's so soft, she whispered, running her fingers through the carpet again. Anko crouched beside her. Naru-chan, how would you like a nice warm bath? She asked. Naruko tilted her head. Do I smell? She asked softly, glancing down at herself. Anko smiled reassuringly. A little, but that just means you've had quite an adventure. Come with me, and we'll get you all cleaned up. Naruko nodded and gently took Anko's hand. Together, they walked down the hallway into a cozy bathroom filled with soft light and neatly arranged items. Naruko's eyes widened as she looked around. The big bathtub, the shiny mirror, and the neatly folded towels all felt new and wonderful to her. As the tub filled with warm water, Anko glanced at her. Do you think you can wash yourself, Naru-chan? She asked. Naruko hesitated, shifting her feet shyly. Seeing this, Anko's expression softened even more. That's okay, she said. I'll help you. Soon, Naruko was sitting in the warm bath, letting out a happy sigh as the water soothed her. Anko carefully helped her wash away the dust and dirt, working patiently and gently. You must have been exploring a lot, Anko said with a small laugh. I've never seen someone collect this much dust in one day. Naruko giggled. I like exploring, she said. As Anko rinsed her hair, Naruko asked curiously, Anko-ne-chan, what's a shinobi? Anko smiled, pleased by the question. A shinobi is someone who protects their village and helps others using special skills, she explained. They train hard and care deeply about the people around them. Naruko's eyes sparkled. That sounds amazing. It is, Anko said. And you can become anything you dream of, Naru-chan. After a long, careful bath, Naruko was finally clean. Her golden hair shone brightly, falling smoothly down her back, and her cheerful smile made the whole room feel warmer. Anko wrapped her in a big, fluffy towel. There we go. All fresh and cozy. She stepped out for a moment and returned with a soft, oversized shirt. Gently, she helped Naruko into it. The shirt was much too big, reaching all the way down to her ankles, and Naruko laughed as she tried to hold up the sleeves. It's like a dress, Naruko said happily. Anko smiled. A very comfortable one. Taking her hand again, Anko led Naruko into her bedroom. The room was calm and peaceful, painted in soft blue tones. Naruko looked around in awe, taking in every detail. Come here, Anko said, guiding her to the bed. She sat down and gently placed Naruko in front of her, then picked up a brush. Carefully and patiently, she began brushing Naruko's long golden hair, smoothing out every little tangle. Naruko sat still, enjoying the gentle motion. This feels nice, she murmured. I'm glad, Anko replied softly. When she finished, Anko set the brush aside and pulled Naruko into a warm hug, tucking her safely under the blanket. Done, she said with a quiet smile. Naruko snuggled close, already feeling sleepy. Thank you, Anko-ne-chan, she whispered. You're welcome, Naru-chan, Anko replied, her voice full of care. Within moments, Naruko drifted off to sleep, peaceful and safe. Anko stayed there, holding her gently, and soon she too closed her eyes, knowing that from this day on, neither of them would feel quite so alone again. As the sunlight poured into her room, Anko was gently woken by the sound of soft snores coming from beneath her coat. She blinked sleepily, then smiled as she realized Naruko had curled up there during the night. Normally, Anko would have taken the coat off, but she had been too tired and had fallen asleep without noticing. She gave a quiet chuckle as the little girl snuggled closer, her breathing steady and peaceful. What am I going to do with her? Anko wondered, though her eyes softened with warmth. She stayed like that for a while, enjoying the calm morning. Eventually, Naruko began to stir. Anko watched as the child crawled out from under the coat, stretching her arms high and arching her back. Just like a little fox, Anko thought with a fond smile. Naruko yawned, then beamed brightly. Morning, Anko-ne-chan, she said cheerfully. Good morning, Naru-chan, Anko replied softly. Why don't we get something to eat? After that, I'll take you to see the Hokage. Okay, Naruko said, hopping off the bed and dashing out of the room with boundless energy. Anko took her time getting ready, then walked into the kitchen to find Naruko already waiting, swinging her legs happily. Anko-ne-chan, where can I get a coat like yours? Naruko asked, eyes shining with curiosity. Anko lifted her onto the counter and began preparing breakfast. Well, if you'd like, we can get you some clothes before we go see the Hokage. Naruko hesitated. I don't have any money, she said quietly, lowering her head. Anko stepped closer, placing her hands gently on either side of her. Naru-chan, you're 4 years old. No one expects you to have money. I'll take care of it, okay? Naruko looked up, her face lighting up again. She wrapped her arms around Anko in a tight hug. Thank you. You're welcome, my little Naru-chan, Anko said, smiling as she returned to cooking. Soon, Naruko sat at the table, watching eagerly as Anko placed a warm plate of food in front of her. Her eyes widened with delight. She took a bite and smiled even wider. This is really good. Anko laughed softly as Naruko ate with great enthusiasm. Before long, the plate was empty, and Naruko leaned back, rubbing her stomach. Next time, you shouldn't eat so fast, Anko said with a playful smirk. I don't want a next time, Naruko replied dramatically, making Anko laugh. Anko-ne-chan, where is Kuma-chan? Naruko asked. Kuma-chan is being washed, Anko explained. She got very dirty, and I'm fixing her arm too. Naruko nodded seriously. Good. She needs to be clean if she's going to be my top advisor. Anko smiled warmly. Until we get you new clothes, you'll wear that shirt, all right? Okay, Naruko agreed, swinging her legs again. Before long, Anko carried Naruko through the village, moving swiftly across rooftops. The people who run the shop we're visiting are good friends of mine, Anko said. They have a daughter about your age. Do you think she'll play with me? Naruko asked eagerly. Anko smiled. Of course. Who wouldn't want to play with you? Naruko grinned, excitement bubbling inside her. They soon arrived at a 2-story shop filled with tools, clothing, and all sorts of interesting items. Hello? Anko called out. A cheerful voice answered from behind them. Hi. Naruko turned and saw a girl about her age, with bright eyes and a friendly smile. Hello, Naruko said shyly, stepping a little closer to Anko. Tenten, this is Naruko, Anko said. Naruko, this is Tenten. Hi, Tenten said again, waving. Naruko gave a small wave back, then smiled. Anko gently encouraged her forward. We're here to find Naruko some clothes. Soon, Tenten's parents joined them, greeting Anko warmly. What kind of clothes would you like? Tenten's father asked kindly. Naruko thought for a moment, then pointed at Anko. I want to look like Anko-ne-chan. Tenten giggled. You can't wear a skirt. Naruko shook her head quickly. I mean, something similar. But my own way. Everyone chuckled softly. Tenten's mother smiled. That sounds like a wonderful idea. Anko looked down at Naruko, her expression gentle and proud. It was a simple morning, but for Naruko, it felt like the beginning of something bright and new, a day filled with kindness, friendship, and the comforting feeling of finally belonging. All right, let's get you dressed, said Emi gently, as she and Anko guided Naruko toward the neatly stacked piles of clothes. They quickly realized that when Naruko said she wanted to look like Anko, she truly meant it. She carefully examined each piece of clothing, only agreeing when it matched Anko's style. Soon, Naruko was dressed in a pair of loose tan pants with many pockets, sturdy black boots, a dark mesh shirt layered beneath, protective shin guards, and a long tan coat that swayed around her ankles. That coat quickly became her favorite. At last, Anko tied Naruko's bright hair into a low ponytail. "There," Emi said warmly. "Now you look just like your Nei-chan." Naruko beamed, her eyes shining with joy. Anko smiled just as brightly. In the short time they had known each other, both had found new reasons to smile. "Why don't you go play with Tenten while I talk with Anko?" Emi suggested. Naruko nodded eagerly, gave Anko a quick hug, and skipped off. Outside, Tenten greeted her with excitement. "Want to practice throwing?" she asked. Naruko nodded, curious and eager to learn. Tenten showed her how to stand, how to aim, and how to throw carefully at a soft practice target marked with a red circle. Naruko focused, took a deep breath, and tossed the practice tool forward. It landed right in the center. "Wow," Tenten whispered. "That was fun," Naruko said, clapping her hands. They spent the next while practicing together, laughing and encouraging each other. Naruko improved quickly, and Tenten was delighted to have a friend who enjoyed practicing as much as she did. "You have to come play again," Tenten said as they headed back inside. "I will," Naruko replied shyly. Later, Naruko sat happily beside Anko, sharing everything she had learned. The adults listened with interest, surprised at her natural coordination but more pleased by her excitement and kindness. After a while, Anko said, "Let's take a walk." On their way, they passed a small park filled with children playing. "Nei-chan?" Naruko asked softly, tugging Anko's sleeve. "Can I go play for a bit?" Anko smiled. "Of course. I'll come find you soon." Naruko ran toward the swings, her coat fluttering behind her. As she approached, she noticed a quiet girl sitting alone, looking unsure and a little sad. Naruko slowed down and walked over. "Hi," she said gently. "I'm Naruko. Do you want to play with me?" The girl looked up, surprised. "I'm Hinata," she said softly. Naruko smiled warmly and held out her hand. After a small pause, Hinata took it. Together, they walked to the swings. Naruko showed her how high she could go, and soon Hinata began to smile too. They laughed softly, taking turns and cheering each other on. The park felt brighter with their friendship. After a while, Naruko spotted Anko in the distance and waved. "I have to go," she said, "but can we play again?" Hinata nodded, her cheeks slightly pink. "I'd like that." Naruko grinned. "Me too." She ran back to Anko, her heart full. "Did you have fun?" Anko asked. "Yes," Naruko said happily. "I made a new friend." Anko placed a gentle hand on her head. "That's the best kind of day." And together, they continued walking, the afternoon sun warm above them and the promise of many more happy days ahead. Anko didn't waste a moment. She scooped up the little girl in her arms and ran quickly toward the Hokage's office, where they were promptly let in by the secretary. The Sandaime Hokage looked a little surprised to see Anko enter holding a small, blonde-haired girl who seemed like a tiny version of herself. "You look worried, Anko," he said gently. "There was another mob, Hokage-sama," Anko replied with a tired sigh as she sank into one of the chairs across from him. Naruko wriggled in her lap, her wide blue eyes scanning the office with curiosity. "Anko Nei-chan," she said, pointing at the old man, "you said the Hokage was the strongest ninja in the village. But he looks so old." Instead of taking offense, the Hokage chuckled warmly, and Anko giggled, hiding her face behind Naruko. "Naru-chan, he may look old, but he's very strong," she whispered softly. Naruko stood in Anko's lap and wagged a tiny finger at the Hokage. "Okay, Ji-san. When I grow up, I'm going to be the Hokage. And then I'll send you to a home for old people." The Hokage laughed kindly at the bold declaration. "When you're ready to take the title of Hokage, I'll pass it to you willingly. Now, Naruko, do you like staying with Anko?" Naruko plopped back into Anko's lap and grinned. "She's my Nei-chan. I love staying with her." "Would you like to live with her all the time?" asked the Hokage. "Can I really?" Naruko's eyes sparkled like little stars. "Yes," said the Hokage. "Anko wishes to adopt you." Naruko leapt up, throwing her arms around Anko's neck and letting out a happy squeal. Anko hugged her tightly, smiling down at her little companion. "So, that's a yes?" she asked. "Why yes," Naruko said, wiping her nose on Anko's coat sleeve. "Will I still call you Nei-chan, or will I call you Ka-chan?" "Nei-chan," Anko said with a laugh. "Ka-chan makes me sound too old." "Will my name change?" Naruko asked. "Only if you want it to," Anko replied. "Do you want to be Uzumaki Naruko or Mitarashi Naruko?" "I want to be Mitarashi Naruko," she shouted excitedly. Anko smiled warmly at her choice, feeling a flutter of pride. Before they could celebrate more, a towering woman stormed into the office, dragging her son behind her. She marched straight to the Hokage's desk, ignoring the guards and secretary. "I demand you do something about that. That thing right now." The Hokage didn't flinch. He leaned back in his chair, intertwining his fingers calmly. "May I ask what she has done?" "That little monster hurt my son for no reason," the woman cried. "And when I tried to stop her, she ran off." Anko looked at Naruko, who was standing on the chair with her arms wrapped around Anko's neck, and whispered, "I thought you said there was a mob." "I thought you said blob," Naruko whispered back with a mischievous giggle. Both Anko and the Hokage chuckled quietly. "Why did you hurt this young man, Naruko?" asked the Hokage gently. "She was trying to protect Hinata-chan," Naruko replied. "You little liar!" the woman shrieked. "My son said he was playing nicely with his friends when you ran up and hurt him." Anko held up a hand and said firmly, "If you don't speak calmly, you'll need to leave the room." The woman froze and quietly sat down, glaring but staying silent. "I happen to know what really happened," the Hokage said. "I have Anbu watching the park at all times. Your son and his friends were teasing Hyuga Hinata before Naruko stepped in. After she asked them to stop, your son got upset and tried to push back." Naruko turned to Anko with a small, proud smile. "Good job, by the way," she whispered. "Thanks," Anko whispered back, hugging her little sister tight. And while Naruko might have held off on defending herself against the boy, she had done nothing wrong, finished the Hokage. The boy's Ka-san shot her Musume a look that made her sink into her chair even further before turning back to the Hokage and saying, "Please excuse me, Hokage-sama." She then stood and gently guided her Musume out of the office by her hand. As the doors shut, the Hokage sighed and shook his head. "Naruko, I did see the fight, and I was wondering if you would like to enter the academy early." Naruko's eyes lit up with excitement, but Anko quickly stepped in and said, "No, thank you." "But why?" whined Naruko. "Don't whine, Naru-chan," Anko said softly. "I want to take you on as my apprentice until you graduate. This way, you can go to the academy like normal, but you will also be my student until you become a Jinan." "Can we start now?" asked Naruko, bouncing in her chair. "As soon as you want," Anko answered. "Now, go wait for me out front." Naruko hugged her tightly before running out of the office. "Are you sure this is what you want?" asked the Hokage, handing Anko the adoption papers and a second stack to make her Naruko's apprentice. "Yes. She needs someone as much as I do," Anko said softly as she began signing the papers. "Besides, you saw the way she dresses. She wouldn't touch anything if it didn't match my style. And as for teaching her, my style is very demanding, but I think she will really excel." "Are you going to teach her everything?" he asked calmly. "As her mistress, I can teach her anything I feel she should learn," she said a little defensively. "Anko, I didn't mean it like that," said the Hokage with a small smile. "I meant, are you going to teach her jutsus well past academy and Jinan level?" "Sorry," she said sheepishly. The Hokage had always been kind to her, and she respected him greatly. "Yes. I plan to teach her as fast as she can learn, and I won't hold anything back because of age or rank." "Could this be because you want her to excel at the academy?" asked the Hokage teasingly, while Anko's cheeks flushed a little. "Maybe a little. She'll be in a class with many heirs and heiresses of major clans. If I don't teach her, she'll be at a disadvantage," she explained, and the Hokage nodded in agreement. "Also, she would struggle without someone there to help her." "I understand, Anko, and if you need anything, don't hesitate to ask," said the kind, elderly Hokage. "Then I'll be looking for you when I need a babysitter," she joked as she finished signing the papers and left the office of a now slightly worried Hokage. As she stepped outside, Anko found her new Tato pretending to be in the middle of a large battlefield. She couldn't help but laugh when Naruko dramatically fell in battle. "You know, most kids imagine themselves as the hero, but you have yourself dying early in the fight," she teased as Naruko jumped to her feet and ran up to her, smiling. "But I was fighting off an army of evil Hokages," she exclaimed. Anko took her hand and began walking back to their apartment. "Why were they evil?" she asked. "They kidnapped you and wouldn't give you back," Naruko explained. "So you died trying to save me?" asked Anko with a smile. Of course. But once you train me to be a shinobi, I'll be able to save you and survive, she said proudly. A worthy goal, Anko teased, patting her on the head fondly. As they passed a small food stand, an older man shouted, Anko. When are you going to stop by again? We need the business. Anko smiled at him, then looked down at Naruko. Are you hungry? When Naruko nodded eagerly, Anko led her to a chair at the counter. Tucci, you old man, how have you been? She called, making Naruko giggle. I'm as well as can be expected, but the more important question is, who is this? He asked, looking down at Naruko. This is Mitarashi Naruko, my new Tauto, Anko said proudly. Naruko, huh? Said the man, studying her. Do you like ramen? What's ramen? She asked, confused. The man gasped, Ayame. Start boiling water. He hurried off, muttering things like, has never had ramen. Which left Naruko even more puzzled. Anko chuckled. Naru-chan, Tucci owns this ramen stand. After I bugged him enough, he also started making dango and sweet bean soup, which I love. But he swears ramen cures all problems. Is ramen good? Asked Naruko. Yes, and Tucci makes some of the best you will ever taste, Anko said firmly. A few minutes later, Tucci returned with a large bowl of steaming beef ramen and a plate of dango. Naruko stared at the noodles, then took a small bite. Her eyes went wide as the flavors filled her mouth. She quickly began shoveling the food in with gleeful abandon. Anko laughed as Naruko discovered a new love for ramen. Tucci's daughter, Ayame, gave her a sympathetic smile as Naruko groaned, holding her stomach after eating a bit too much. Ramen, good, she mumbled, smiling despite the fullness. Anko paid for the food, but Tucci waved her off. Technically, you didn't order, and with the way she ate, I expect she'll be back often, he said with a grin. Thanks, Tucci, Anko said, lifting Naruko onto her shoulders. Ready to go, Naru-chan? Yes, she answered softly, resting her head against Anko's. As they walked home, Anko thought about Naruko's fight with the older children. She knew her new apprentice had skill and courage, and she was more excited than ever to begin training her. Naru-chan? She asked. Yes, Nate-chan? What exactly happened with the Hyuga girl? She asked calmly. I was getting ready to start swinging when I heard someone whimpering, Naruko explained cheerfully. When I looked around, I saw 3 older kids teasing Hinata-chan and making her fall down. So I ran over and told them to leave. They didn't listen at first, so I waved my kunai around to make them back off. Then, once it was safe, I helped Hinata-chan up and we went to play on the swings. But right when we were about to start, this big lady came chasing me with a stick, so I ran away. Anko couldn't help but smile at Naruko's energetic storytelling. Well, she said, her own eyes sparkling, as soon as you're ready, we can begin your training. What will you teach me? Naruko asked, bouncing a little on her feet. The first thing will be reading and writing, Anko said. After that, I'll teach you the basics of my taijutsu style, some beginner ninjutsus, and a few harmless tricks for self-defense. Later, once you're ready, we can practice my special snake techniques and learn some clever ways to use poison safely for medicine and plants. Naruko's eyes widened with excitement. Wow! That sounds amazing. You're already very good with kunai, so while we might practice a little with a sword, those will likely be your main tools, Anko added with a grin. Can we start as soon as we get home? Naruko asked eagerly. Anko nodded, smiling at the word home. Yes. As soon as we get home, we'll start with reading. The walk back was filled with chatter about all the things Naruko wanted to learn and the friends she had made. Anko quietly wondered if she would also make any girlfriends along the way. Once they reached the fence bordering the forest, they saw a woman leaving, a striking woman with shoulder-length black wavy hair, ruby red lips, and deep crimson eyes. She wore ceremonial bandages and a metal mesh undershirt with a bold red sleeve on her right arm. But Naruko didn't notice all that. She was too busy thinking, she's beautiful, but not as pretty as my Nei-chan. Anko. You won't believe the rumors. They say you have a child. The woman started, then froze when she noticed Naruko sitting on Anko's shoulders. Kurenai, this is Mitarashi Naruko, formerly Uzumaki, my new Tauto. Naruko-chan, this is my best friend of many years, Yuhi Kurenai, Anko said with a warm smile. Hello, Naruko said happily, and Kurenai could only wave back weakly. We were just about to go inside so I could teach Naruko-chan how to read and write. Do you want to come too? Anko offered. Kurenai nodded, still a little stunned, and followed them inside. Once home, Anko sat Naruko down and began teaching her simple words. Naruko picked up the letters quickly, tracing them with careful, excited strokes. By the time the sun set, Naruko had fallen asleep at the table, her little head resting in her hand. Naruko-chan, why don't you go to bed? We'll continue tomorrow morning, Anko said gently. Naruko nodded, hugged Anko tightly, and ran to the bedroom, collapsing onto the pillow and drifting off immediately. Kurenai, who had been quiet the whole time, finally asked, "Are you going to tell me what's going on?" Anko sighed and poured a small cup of tea for each of them, sitting down opposite Kurenai at the low table. "Last night, I found Naruko being teased and pushed around by some kids. I stepped in to help her, then brought her home to clean up and rest. This morning, I officially adopted her as my apprentice. It's only been a day, but she's already shown she's brave, clever, and ready to learn." Kurenai blinked, still a little surprised. Earlier today, she even helped Hinata-chan when some older kids were bothering her at the park. She didn't hesitate to step in and make sure Hinata-chan was safe. And then she told me she thought there was a mob chasing her. But it was just one very worried woman, Anko explained, chuckling. By the end of the story, both Anko and Kurenai were laughing, though Kurenai couldn't help but wonder what it would be like to have another Anko in her life. Anko might be her best friend, but even she could admit she was a little wild. "Are you sure about this, Anko?" Kurenai asked seriously. "Yes," Anko replied softly. "Naruko and I both need this." Kurenai simply nodded her head. She knew how hard it was for Anko and Naruko, not from first-hand experience, but from the fact that she was the only one willing to listen to Anko when she felt like talking. So she knew well everything the villagers had done or said to her. When it came to Uzumaki Naruko, however, she knew nothing, and she had struggled to keep it that way. Kurenai wasn't trying to be unkind or unfeeling, but she knew it would break her heart to hear some of the things the village had done to the poor girl. Even Anko knew very little of her pain, because at least Anko had a family, friends, and a chance to grow up a little. Naruko had been alone her whole life, never having a friend or loved one to talk to, until now. "Well, I for one am happy for you," Kurenai said, raising her dish in a toast to the two of them. Once she downed her sake, she added jokingly, "But did you have to dress her like you?" Anko shook her head and smiled. "I never had a choice. I took Naruko to Kenshin and Amy's this morning, and she stated quite firmly that she wanted to be just like me, minus the skirt, of course." "Did she and Tenten get along okay?" Kurenai asked. "The best of friends," Anko boasted. "Tenten taught Naruko how to throw a kunai, and then we found out she must be a prodigy. She can throw a kunai clean through the head of a practice dummy from over 20 feet away." "Impressive," agreed Kurenai calmly, though inside she knew she was going to have to listen to the proud Ka-san speech every time Naruko succeeded at something. The two were interrupted by a soft voice from the hallway. "Nate-chan?" Anko looked and found Naruko standing in the hallway, tears glistening in her eyes. "What is it, Naru-chan?" she asked gently. Naruko didn't say anything but ran to her, jumped into her arms, and hugged her tightly. "What's wrong?" Anko pressed.
I woke up and thought that you all left me," said Naruko quietly as she curled into a tiny ball in Anko's lap and cried.
Kurenai watched as Anko whispered reassurances to the small girl while running her hand gently over her back. She was shocked and amazed at the fact that Anko could be such a caring Ka-san figure, not just the eccentric, spirited woman everyone knew her as. If she were honest with herself, even she wanted to comfort the crying child. "I think I'll head home," Kurenai said softly. "Good night, Kurenai," said Anko as her friend stood and walked toward the door. "Good night, Anko." "Good night, Naruko," Kurenai said before leaving, disappearing in a puff of smoke. "Naru-chan, why did you think I left you? Do you really think I would adopt you only to leave you again?" asked Anko as she carried Naruko back into her room, laying her down gently before sliding in beside her. "And no, but one time a villager pretended to be nice tea to me, and when I followed her into an alley, she started hitting me," cried Naruko as Anko pulled her even closer and held her tightly. "Well, I'm never going to leave you, Naru-chan," Anko said gently. "Why you promise?" asked the young girl. "I promise," she vowed. "Now get some sleep, Naru-chan. Tomorrow we'll start with taijutsu and continue your lessons in reading and writing." Naruko nodded sleepily, rubbing her tired eyes one last time before finally closing them. "I promise things will be different," Anko whispered softly, closing her own eyes and falling asleep beside her little sister. Guys, that's a wrap. If you enjoyed the content, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support. Best regards. 6th Path Weeb.